Hello and welcome to NAIOP Edmonton's special event, 20 Questions with Colin Clish, hosted by Bronwyn Scrivens. My name is Anand Pai, and I'm the Executive Director of NAIOP Edmonton. This event is a special one for me. Colin actually hired me in 2016 to work at NAIOP, and it was a big break for me. I was working at UDI, another industry association. We worked together on the Industrial Action Plan and started having conversations about where NAIOP was going at the time and ways that we could improve and grow the advocacy side of the business. And that became what is now my position as executive director at NAIOP, doing education, advocacy, and events. So Colin and I have a special connection, and I just wanted to talk for a second about some of the things we've done in the past 3 or 4 years since the end of 2016. We've started an industry hockey tournament at Rogers Place in our first year. We grew our golf tournament to be one of the largest in the city, doubling our contribution to Little Warriors 3 times in a row. We started the only industry cycling event supporting Sports Central. And we've continued to grow our education programs, hosting our first classes with the help of Alison McGavigan and the folks in our education committee, as well as our advocacy arm, doing now municipal, provincial, and federal advocacy. Just in the next few weeks, we're continuing to do our 20 questions events. Next week, we'll be taking a short break. For our 20 questions events to do a sponsors-only webinar on the Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program with the CEO of CMHC and senior people from Minister Morneau's office. And this is a huge win for our advocacy work, which we've been doing over the last several months. NAIOP International continues to offer courses for free right now, and those courses won't be free for too much longer, so take a look into signing up. They're usually about $795 and are all free during the COVID-19 pandemic. So a good opportunity to learn and improve while we're working from home. And all of this is made possible with the support of our sponsors. So we just want to take a second to thank our top sponsors. You've seen the screen scrolling behind me here. To our top sponsors, Remington, Qualico, Quadrille, and Panattoni Development, and all of our sponsors, thank you very much. So without further ado, let's introduce our speakers. Colin's accomplishments include lease transactions totaling over 2 million square feet and commercial industrial real estate sales of $324 million. Having co-founded PointOne in 2017, Colin now leads the successful development of data center projects in Canada and the United States. So Colin will get you to turn your camera on and unmute yourself. And I'd also like to introduce Bronwyn Scrivens, who's an associate at Omada Commercial, the chair of our Developing Leaders Committee, as well as sitting on several of our other committees, including our board and our hockey committee. So welcome, guys.
Thanks, Anand. Yeah, so I guess we'll just kind of get started here. As Anand mentioned, Colin has had a huge impact on the growth of NAIOP as a whole over the years, right from its kind of inception days. He's also been someone that I've looked up to, and he's always been someone that answers the phone and is happy to have a coffee or a conversation with anyone in the industry, whether that's as a colleague or as a mentor. In fact, you and I sat down about 6 months ago where you graciously allowed me to pick your brain on data centers, something that I knew very little about at the time, but which you have become, somewhat of a local expert. So I think that's what I'm really excited to talk to you about today again. And I guess to start this off, maybe do you want to just kind of do a brief introduction as to how you got started into commercial real estate and where the first kind of 5 to 10 years of your career took you?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I guess first off, thanks, Anand, for the kind words. I really enjoyed working with you on a day-to-day basis when I was, much more involved in NAIOP Edmonton on a day-to-day basis, like I said. And he talked about NAIOP being a big break for you. I think even more than that, I think Anand, as I'm sure many people on this call will agree, was a big break for NAIOP. And so so I appreciate that. But I wanted to spin that around on you a little bit because it was more our opportunity than it was than maybe it was for you. But that's our perspective. And then, yeah, thanks, Bronwyn. I think I just enjoy getting together with people. I think I'll talk about it a little bit on this webinar. That's some of the. I think it's been kind of some of the keys to my success and just building relationships. And I just enjoy relationships. I enjoy listening to people's perspectives and hearing what people think of different situations and just learning from people. So that's been great. So I thank you actually for reaching out and setting something up. It was good to learn about your opportunity and where you're at in your career and things you like to do. So I appreciate that. But yeah, just I guess a quick overview. I'll try not to be too boring. I didn't set out in my education or early in my younger years to be in real estate. It really kind of fell into my lap. It's just an opportunity that came to me and just kind of leveraged it and kind of went with the wind, so to speak. Wherever opportunity kind of presented itself, I feel like I was able to kind of jump on things and leverage them to the best that I could. And so that's kind of the overall story. I started out, actually went to forestry school. That was kind of my initial passion in education. It wasn't necessarily real estate. And I'm sure a lot of people on this call or in this industry have different unique paths to getting into it, because there's obviously, as we've been working on it now, there's no clear path in this market anyway for young people to get into real estate development or real estate in general, and just the way it's set up. But so I'm a prime example of that. I started at Parkland County, west of the city, and worked my way into the planning department. Managed development from a municipal perspective, servicing and that sort of thing, and met a bunch of developers and brokers over the years working there, and then had an opportunity just from meeting with the right person at the right time to jump over to Remington. For those who don't know, Remington's a pretty dominant real estate developer in Alberta. And I was there for 8 years up until 2015, learned a ton, became a different person almost from the real estate perspective. And everything I learned working at Remington for those guys, I was able to, I felt like I could leverage into my own business. So I left Remington to start Clish Corp in 2015. Just focusing on trying to be small and nimble and focusing on opportunity in this market, leveraging people, relationships and that sort of thing. And then out of the blue, kind of come up the PointOne opportunity in 2017 to branch into a market that I knew really nothing about, but felt like I could contribute my knowledge to a specific set of circumstances with specific partners that kind of needed a real estate development expertise, and that I felt like I could lever their expertise and turn it into a business that's far from a success today, but it's hopefully it's on the right path. We'll see.
So just under 10 years with Remington, then you founded Clish Developments in 2015 for a short stint, and then jumped into PointOne in around 2017. So obviously lots of changes and movement there. How did these opportunities present themselves to you? How did you consider taking those risks, and what were some of the factors that you looked into before you made those moves?
Yeah, I think it's hard it's going to be hard to write this in a textbook for sure, but it's from my perspective, it's 100% relationships. It's 100% meeting people. It's almost little to do with numbers and market analysis, and it was more about listening to different perspectives, meeting people, and then having mentors. I think that was really key for me. I still have mentors, and I think anybody, almost regardless of age, and specifically in this business, if they can establish relationships with people at different perspectives and have different experiences, and that can kind of guide you. I think that's really what's opened up opportunity for me, and just learning from people, and understanding, oh man, there's there's a niche in this particular spot for the particular set of skills that I have, and that's, I don't think that's not a magic formula that I think it's a formula that's available to anybody really, and it's just about finding that right opportunity, and I think it so it really boils down to that. I think and then just having the confidence to take a swing, and go for it. So, and also overall, I think for me, the opportunities just had to kind of feel right. It wasn't about analyzing a market as a corporation would do, maybe finding the numbers, finding a niche and leveraging it. It's more about, the feel of the opportunity and really having the confidence to jump in and lever that situation. That makes sense.
For sure. Yeah, for sure it does. So with PointOne, which is what I was really interested to chat to you about when we met, obviously the goal with that company is to grow data centers. And so you expanded first into Northern Virginia before starting in Canada. What was your rationale behind that move?
Well, when we started, one of my partners lived in Virginia, and was in the business and has been in the business for a while. Obviously, that was a key to, a couple of Canadians who didn't know the business to be able to leverage it. So that was a key part. But I think, when we started developing the plan, and it didn't just happen overnight. Obviously, it was one of those things, as we kind of talked about earlier. It was one of those things you stick your toe in, and then, as I'm working on other stuff, and okay, put the foot in, and then it wasn't necessarily, a full jump 100% from 0 to 100. It took some time to kind of have some confidence in the opportunity to give it all, to give it all your time. So I think about Northern Virginia, it really is the primary market for data centers in the world. We always talk about kind of the hub and spoke nature of the internet and data centers, and really Northern Virginia is one of the major hubs, if not, it is the biggest hub in the world in the metro Washington DC area, and there's a lot of reasons for that market to have grown into what it is today. But from from a strategy perspective, we felt like we have a unique way of approaching the market. We had some competitive advantages, and because of our unique offering, we felt like we needed to go right into the biggest market and establish ourselves in the biggest market and establish customer relationships in that market, in the most visible market. So it really had to do with the specifics around data centers and where their customers are growing to the greatest extent. Because I think if we were one of the crowd and we're maybe more leveraging a locational advantage, then we'd be in other places. But our offering is fairly unique, and so we kind of wanted to go to jump right into where the big boys are playing.
So I imagine you're not going to tell us what that unique offering is that makes you so different.
No, I think I talk about it all the time. I don't think it's not a secret. It's not this KFC's
magic special sauce.
Yeah. It's more about we looked at the market and it partly came from where I came from as well. Is that we looked at this market and saw REITs. Primarily there's a bunch of data center REITs, and then there's a bunch of owner users developing opportunity, and then there's a bunch of data center operators developing, and there's no merchant development going on, right? And so it's really no secret. It's the merchant development that I sort of learned at Remington. That's kind of what I brought to the company, and that's kind of our niche is offering customers a triple net situation in a market where they're not necessarily used to that, and then just following the capital, right? It's a hot market from a capital perspective. There's a lot of infrastructure funds, REITs, pension funds that are trying to get exposure to the market, and the offerings are they're kind of a blend of opco and propco versus just straight triple net carefree income. So that's kind of our niche, is really um, merchant development into a world where REITs and owner users are more predominant.
Maybe do you just want to explain how a typical data center lease works? Because it was interesting to me, normally doing the triple net type of deal, but
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure people would be interested to hear how it works.
Sure, there's a proliferation of gross leases or blended type leases where and it really come out of service. When your business is in a location like industrial or retail office, when your business is there, you're there. You're servicing a lot of your own needs. In a data center, sometimes if you're a tenant, you may not have staff there. You may just have infrastructure there. You may just have your server infrastructure there. It can be manned or unmanned. And so a lot of the demand from customers is not only space, power, and infrastructure connectivity. It's what we call smart hand service. Servicing your server equipment. A few minutes because it's not performing versus having, as a tenant, having to go to the location where you have servers and have your own people do that. So that's where the proliferation of blended gross leases is in place. But I think we see obviously the hyperscalers. So when I say hyperscalers, I mean the AWSs, the Microsofts, Googles, Facebooks, sort of the top 10 cloud internet providers. Those hyperscalers are increasingly taking much bigger chunks of capacity and therefore have their own operations and that sort of thing. So therefore, more and more looking for net and carefree kind of situations where they can operate their own infrastructure and develop just in time, versus trying to find their own land, entitle it, get through all the servicing stuff, and then it's hard for them to predict their growth. So they just can't look 2 years ahead and establish locations and build out for themselves. So I'm not sure if that totally answered your question.
Yeah, and I think what you had mentioned to me too is it's based on a rack system, right? When you're doing the leases as opposed to a square footage, it's based off of actual racks.
Right. I like to kind of explain it because I come from an industrial development world. I kind of explain it as like another dimension, where it's like a third dimension almost. It's like in our world it was like square footage and height, right? And so it's kind of that third dimension, I guess. But in a data center world, it's density as well. So you can have, and we measure it in power. So if you've got a 500 kilowatt requirement, or let's use a single megawatt, I guess, as a lump of requirement or as a unit, a megawatt can be spread out across 100,000 feet, or it can be jammed into 20,000 feet. And so really the infrastructure to service that megawatt is still expensive. You still have to put the same power infrastructure, backup generation, network infrastructure. So you have a lot of the same costs into just a smaller footprint. And so that density, so that we lease space based on the power capacity of a space, and not necessarily the space itself. And so it's primarily because of that factor. It's tough to say, well, we'll have a price per square foot, but then the infrastructure into that square foot or that space can be completely different, and therefore it's just a way of eliminating that variable, I guess. So that was a unique part that I had to kind of get my head around, and we're kind of leasing infrastructure versus space.
For sure. And so when you went down into the States to learn and to grow your knowledge base and to kind of apply this merchant system down there, was it hard to break in, or did you guys just kind of hit the ground running?
I think it's a tough market to break in. There's no question, just because of the scale. It's tough to start small. we're not really starting small,
What was that stat that you told me? It was something like 75 or 80% of the data run. I'll let you say it.
Right, that's a famous kind of stat in our market. At any given moment across the internet of the world, 70 to 80% of any given moment's traffic is being routed through Northern Virginia. So whether you're in Thailand or Russia or South Africa, you're using the internet, that capacity is being routed through Northern Virginia 70 to 80% of the time. And so it's a not many people know about that, because most of the players that are establishing internet and cloud capacity there, they're trying to be as secretive as possible, right? As a group like AWS will tie you down with multiple NDAs, and so even developers and even agents aren't supposed to be talking about the deal they just did. And so it's a really challenging market to track for agents and brokerages. I find it kind of funny, but yeah, it's quite the hub. It doesn't mean there's not other hubs, but it is sort of 100% bigger than the next biggest hub for the internet.
For sure. So I guess switching back to Alberta, when do you think that we'll see some of this kind of coming into our marketplace? I imagine you'll be the first to do it.
I hope so, but it's far from a fact, obviously. We've established a position here. It's a land position, but obviously, in a data center world, land is not necessarily the uniqueness. It's a little bit less of a location than maybe some other asset classes. It's more about the infrastructure and the total cost of ownership. And so if a particular site is serviced with the right infrastructure, and it's in the right tax environment, and it's in the right staffing environment and that sort of thing, then it can be an attractive place for hyperscalers or groups developing larger chunks of capacity. And I think in Alberta, in the next 5 years, as we were kind of talking about, I think in the next 5 years there will be known and trackable data center development in Alberta and Western Canada. It's happening in Eastern Canada. It's happening in all markets all over the world. It's I think Western Canada is one of the last places to see this type of development for whatever reason, and so I think it will become more prevalent, and in 5 years it'll be kind of a trackable, known.
Is it incentives that are required? Is that part of the question mark for Alberta? Is it infrastructure in the ground that's required? Is it the power?
Well, we got a lot of stuff going for us. There's no question about it. We've got pro business government.
Mm-hmm.
We've got economical power. That's a big factor. We've got a good tax regime. I mean, it's not the greatest.
Colder weather to keep the buildings cool, right? To keep all the servers cool.
There's free cooling opportunities, absolutely. So there's efficiency, total cost of ownership opportunities here. There's no question. I think the biggest factor that the reason why we haven't seen it is because we're so spread out, and that means network development is behind the curve in Western. Mm-hmm. And it's I believe it's just because obviously trying to run a new fiber lines between here and Vancouver is next to impossible, and it's just a huge challenge, which is with the geography. That I think that's probably the primary reason. And then in the U.S. they have a different culture to incentives. Mm-hmm. Counties beside each other battle. We can offer different incentives and battle each other. It's like an open marketplace almost. I like to describe it as legal bribing. They call it proffers down there, where a lot of in Eastern Canada or in Eastern U.S. anyway, where how badly do you want this development? So they'll look at residential, and they will, they'll just put their hand out and say, okay, you want to develop residential in this county, you want to rezone this site, that's going to cost you $1 million or $2 million or $5 million, because we've analyzed the long-term cost of this development to our system, it's a negative, and so you got to make that up, Mr. Developer. Whereas, and that system also gives a commercial developer the incentives capacity. So the municipality will turn around and go, you know what, we love industrial and office, and we love these tax efficient development, and so they will incentivize that by competing. And so you literally walk in there and you can say, you know, your tax rate is X. We would like to pay 10% of that because the next county is going to be 20% of that. So, and it's really kind of the way it works down there. And so I know we have law here that prevents that type of stuff, and so that is a bit of a challenge. But obviously, with economic diversification required here, and you know, and a sort of a new look to try to incentivize development, I do believe that there's, and it's already happening, as most people know, that we're, you know, municipalities are taking a much more active role in incentivizing non-res development, and so yeah, I think there's opportunity for that here, and I think it will happen here fairly soon.
So then, I guess, what's your broader, I guess, prediction for Alberta's future? Like, where do you think we're heading over the next 3 years? I know everyone's a little grim right now, as we have been for a few years, but what are you seeing? I guess because you have both the American and the Canadian perspective, it's more of a global view.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not a rosy prediction. There's no question about it. I mean, I mean, I'm because of that sort of exposure I have in the U.S. I obviously have less exposure here day to day. So that's a bit of a challenge to making, you know, micro predictions versus macro predictions. But I mean, obviously, I believe in the diversification required of the requirements for our economy. There's no question about that. I don't think oil and gas is going away in the short term. I just don't think we're going to have the booms that we're used to, and I think we're just not going to have the bust like we're used to either. And I think we've seen that over the last 4 or 5 years, where, you know, I honestly think the busts haven't been very deep, or the downs haven't been very deep, and I just don't think the ups are going to be incredibly robust either. And so I just think it's going to feel more like a mature economy, where we've got, you know, many different market segments. And so I think, like I said, I think that diversification has to happen. But I think I'm not moving anywhere. I love it here. I think there's going to be tremendous opportunities still here. I just think it's going to, you know, as long as we can maintain our pro-business environment, and, you know, we've got stable government like we've always had, I think we'll tick along, like I said, like a more mature economy. And, you know, change is good. And I think, you know, I think if we, for a real estate perspective, I think the more, you know, as we can probably talk about, the more the internet changes the way we shop and the way we work, I think change will require different real estate. And so I think for developers, you know, maybe it may not be great to be a landlord with that type of change, but from a developer's perspective, change is good. So I don't think it's, I'm not as down as some people, but I still don't think it's going to be, I think we're going to be a more mature economy than we ever have been.
Yes, and you're also someone that's always forward looking and looking for those opportunities, as we've kind of attested to already with your career. You're always keeping your eye open for the next trends and the next drivers. So I guess
maybe it just hits me on the head.
Maybe it does. It just falls on you and it's there. Well, I think there's something to be said to that, right? Is keeping all doors open, no matter what situation you're in, and you know, having a conversation with anyone, and you never know where it's going to take you. So then, I guess, having said that, like, what do you see are some of the driving trends that we're going to see in our industry? And I guess, how do you analyze those trends and reflect them within PointOne and Clish developments?
Yeah, I mean, I think the trends are like I mentioned. I think the internet, the way we use the internet, is changing everything. Obviously, it's going to be no secret to this group about, you know, the change in office and the change in retail. And I particularly, my prediction, just being maybe exposed a good amount to like the corporate side of NAIOP and the forum that I'm involved in, and talking to other people in different markets in the U.S. I feel like, you know, a lot of people think industrial has legs, and I think there's going to be a major change in industrial, and so I think there's a tremendous opportunity in industrial. We've got some great knowledge base, great opportunity here in Edmonton. So I think from an opportunity perspective, change, for, like I said, for developers anyway, change in real estate is good. I think that's good for agents too. I think it's good for brokers, obviously, when things are changing. But I think the way we shop is going to change, and the way we work in offices is going to change. And so, you know, from a location perspective, you may not value certain locations like you used to if you're a retail business, or if you're just looking for a pure office. I don't think that's a new story, but like I said, I think that'll just change the way people look at location. And so for developers that have positions or can kind of get in front of that and kind of follow the capital, I think there's going to be a tremendous opportunity still here for people that have their ear to the ground and aren't just kind of just watching prevailing numbers. You know, they're kind of looking at trying to take measured risks and measured decisions with the right risk reward profile to make investments in where this thing's going to go.
How fast does the technology become not obsolete but outdated in the data center world? Like, I feel like we were chatting about that, and it's, I mean, you think about your iPhone, you know, you get a new model every single year. I imagine that it's the same when you're developing technology real estate, right?
For sure, yeah. And I think it's a tough thing for our industry, the data center development industry, to grapple. I mean, our customers really face that challenge. But imagine if you're a REIT or a landlord and you're buying a data center, you know, the data center you bought 5 years ago, 10 years ago is obsolete. Mm-hmm. It doesn't, like we're talking about density, it just doesn't have the infrastructure to it that's required. So, I mean, from a developer's perspective, again, that leads to opportunity. You know, if there's owner users that have developed their data centers with, you know, lower densities, there's opportunities to acquire these lease backs and, you know, improve them. So it's kind of no different than the opportunities in other sectors from a real estate perspective. I mean, like I said, from our customers' perspective, server technology changes very quickly, and it's Moore's law, you know, drives that. And you know, for them, when they, you know, when they're fitting out a data center with thousands of servers, those servers have an end of life that's like 3 to 4 years, maybe 5 anyway. And so a lot of times they're swapping out servers that demand more power, more cooling. And so, you know, your data center can only, you know, the infrastructure to it needs to be scalable. And so I think if you're, from our perspective, you're developing a data center, you just got to absolutely keep that in mind, that you may have to, or if you're going to own that data center long term, that it's got to be a box that you can scale the infrastructure into it one way or the other. And that's why servers or data centers are primarily industrial looking buildings, because they're just like a distribution warehouse. You can change the use in there. You can do a lot of different things for relatively low cost. If the bones of the building are right, then you can kind of keep ahead of that curve. But the way we kind of look at, you know, people smarter than me look at the data center market, they look at it, and without Moore's law, we would run out of power. The East Coast would run out of power very quickly without Moore's law. So we almost need it to kind of contain the growth of the data center industry, and because it is in our industry, it's a huge factor as how much power it uses, how inefficient it is. You know, it's a real problem that we're facing, and there's a lot more eyes on our industry and how much power and sometimes dirty power that our industry uses just to offer the internet up to everybody. So it's certainly an ongoing challenge that we have.
For sure. I'm just going to quickly say here, if anyone has any questions, we're kind of getting close to the end of our time. There is a chat function if you want to add them to there. You can ask Colin anything that you want to know about, I guess, his current career, data center development, or anything like that. And then I guess I'll just continue on a couple more questions here. I guess, kind of looking back on everything we've discussed, you've taken a lot of risks. You've started new companies. You've gone into areas that you had no knowledge of, and you've grown that knowledge in ways that are challenging and competitive. And you've always been able to find niches in everything that you've done to differentiate yourself, which I think is a huge reason why you've been so successful in what you do. So I guess particularly in the market that we're in, how, there will be probably many people looking for new opportunities or trying to find a way to differentiate themselves. And you've kind of touched on this a little bit, but like what do you think, I guess, how do they look for these opportunities, and how do you know which opportunities are worth taking? How do you keep yourself open to them? And then, how do you differentiate yourself, I guess, from your perspective?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, it's not a playbook. There's no question about it. I mean, I think from my experience, and it's really looking back, it wasn't a plan, but looking back, I think the biggest thing was just being open to opportunity. And I found that if you're really looking for opportunity, it will find you. And even the bigger thing I found, which I was surprised about, is when I communicated to other people that I was open to opportunity or open to doing something new, then ideas start kind of flowing and opportunities start coming. And so that, I mean, overarching, that's kind of what I learned was that I didn't find a lot of opportunity until I was talking to people, and maintaining relationships. And then, when I decided to leave Remington as an example to start Clish Corp, I honestly didn't have a tremendous game plan for exactly what I was going to do. I kind of thought, what, I'll be able to leverage my knowledge and relationships, and we'll figure it out. And just kind of jumping out there and communicating just that to people, people kind of, you start to kind of form opportunity in relationships, or opportunity out of relationships, when people know that, hey, we could do something together. Hey, you're open to opportunity. You're not so focused that I'm not even, as an outsider, I'm not even going to ask you if you'd consider doing something, or what are your ideas on this other opportunity, that if you seem to be super focused on what you're doing and you've got a path that you seem super stuck to. So, I think like I said, just for me, it was just about being open, and then hearing ideas, and then, surrounding yourself with thinkers. That was the other part that I found myself wanting to kind of meet with people that were, thinkers, so to speak, almost, right? Where you think people thinking about, their opportunity, their personal lives, and what their, desires were, and how they're going to make themselves happy, and so that kind of grew into opportunity. And I think in terms of knowing what opportunities are good and which ones are not good, it simply just came down to feel.
Mm-hmm.
Feel for me, in terms of, is this a risk that's worth taking, and does it feel right? Do the people I'm working with, have to work with on this, are we going to get along? Are they going to be there when times get tough? Are they going to be adaptable? Can you adapt to the situation? I think adaptability, is another big piece. And then I think the biggest, and then for me personally, it would have been really tough to jump on new opportunity if your personal life isn't in good shape. You know, it's probably said not enough, but like if I wasn't, if I was living beyond my means, as an example, or I couldn't withstand times of low or no income or unpredictable income. I mean, it's kind of like the real estate broker story too, right? If you can't have your personal life withstand, even for the best brokers, right? Or the most established brokers, if you can't withstand, unpredictable changes to your income, you're just not going to be able to jump on opportunity, or you're going to sit there and go, I'd love to do that. It looks great. It's an amazing opportunity, but I can't, or as when times get tough, as they will in any business, there's good times and tough times. And when times get tough, you have to pull the ripcord quickly, or are you sustainable? And therefore it's sustainable to get through some of the more challenging times. So yeah, I guess overall to me, it's just about feel and not necessarily checking boxes on
For sure. And I think when we were chatting the other day, it was will I regret this in a few years if I don't take this chance? If I sit back and I stay complacent in what I'm doing, not that staying in what you're doing is necessarily the wrong choice, but will I look back on this and regret not doing it?
Right. And that was a big thing that drove me in a couple of decisions I made. Pretty comfortable, things are going good. I really, but something, something in your gut is telling you, I got to do something, or I got to do something to keep waking up in the morning. So will that opportunity, or will your current situation continue to wake you up and drive you to work and get through the tough times? If it doesn't, then you kind of already know that you might have to switch it up. For sure.
And are you continuing to learn new things and be, motivated to go in and, like we were saying, always having new things to learn? It keeps it exciting and it keeps you wanting to get
That's my personal trait. That's my personal trait. I get sometimes a little too bored, and it's harder to wake up, and it's harder to hours you need to, and so I find myself kind of looking at the new widget.
All right, a few questions have rolled in here from Richard Haas. With power being your largest OPEX, does energy trading play a role in your business, internal or outsourced?
Yeah, I mean, it's in our business, because we're developing more of a infrastructure-based real estate versus operations-based data center. Our customers are super focused on infrastructure costs and ongoing power costs. So I think for us, we target real estate that is in a place where our customers can lever the power market. There's some power markets in the U.S., and Alberta is a deregulated market to some degree. Some power markets in the U.S. that are different and are challenging for our customers to operate their own trading. But as an example, little old PointOne doesn't really get between Microsoft and the power provider. They go out and they find their own PPAs or a power purchase agreement. A lot of them are purchasing. They have power departments. I can't recall the name of their departments at the moment, but they have departments that track energy markets, enter into agreements with green energy developers, solar developers, and they're developing. They all want to be, Amazon, Google, Microsoft. They've all announced that they want to be more green and they want to, buy more sustainable energy. And so they don't necessarily do it on a building by building basis. Like, I got to have solar right beside my building, or got to use the exact electrons that are coming from that development. It's more about, well, we've invested and own 400 megawatts of green energy in the world, and our data centers use 400 megawatts of green energy in the world, and so they call themselves carbon neutral or green, and so it's a less locational and more macro level type of thing. But to answer the question, we kind of, in our offering, we stay out of that because our customers seem to want to do it. And one of the big trends that we're trying to jump on is distributed generation. So utilizing our backup power system to actually be the primary power during opportune times in the grid, and therefore can lower your power costs by using that and using the grid as your backup versus being able to switch back and forth during opportune times in certain markets that have, that have the volatility to give you that opportunity. And then a lot of those power markets also offer programs where if you're supplying the grid with your system, that you can make a good amount of money. So that's kind of the leading edge of data centers and energy.
Etienne asks, Colin, where are you looking to invest in the next few years, and how does your team view opportunity in Canada versus USA? How is the future of investment in Alberta with you?
Yeah, I think, thanks, Etienne. It's good to hear from you. We should catch up soon. I think the way we look at it, obviously, there's primary markets where data centers have been established. We've been able to build a team in the U.S. that, primarily our team primarily came from AWS, our U.S. team anyway. And so it reminds me of real estate in Edmonton. It's a pretty small community. It's a pretty small market. Same thing there. So the reason why I bring that up is because for our business, it's really about, where are our customers going to go? Where do they want to be? And so, it's not necessarily looking at the top 10 markets and establishing positions. It's more about, trying to listen to our customers about where they need infrastructure, where they want to be. And those, it's in our business markets like Columbus, markets like Atlanta, which aren't currently top 10 data center markets in the US. Those are the places where the municipalities are the hungriest, and so the incentives are the greatest, and that's where hyperscalers can continue to develop the lowest total cost of operations. So we're looking to enter new markets in the US. We've already got 4 or 5 positions in Virginia, but we're looking to enter new markets along with our customers. In terms of Western Canada, we've got a site here in Atchison that used to be an industrial development, and it is something we're leveraging and trying to bring a customer here. But then we're currently working with the Alberta government to develop an incentive package to try to drive our customers, because they are coming. I can guarantee we will be in Western Canada, whether they're with us or not. And so we're trying to get in front of that. And so we are actively pursuing Western Canadian markets as well. Hope that answers your question.
Hopefully it does, Etienne. Thank you, he says. So you're sure it's coming to Alberta. Is it because of the size of the cities, the population size? What is, the reason for it, I guess, coming?
I think it's we have a great sort of a lot of, like I said, a lot of good things going for us. I mean, they're shutting down some of the dirty, quote unquote, dirty energy production, like burning coal and that sort of thing. And that looks good because our hyperscale customers, they've established themselves in places like Ontario, or Ontario and Quebec primarily. And Montreal is a major growing market for them. And it's I talked to the AWS people. They said it came down to A, they wanted to be in that region, but also B, they went to these specific locations because they're hydropower. They're under tremendous pressure on the other side to be more green and to be more sustainable, and so they're trying to catch up. And so the worst thing they can do is establish locations that don't help the cause, that hurt the cause. And so that's a big piece for here in Alberta. Like I talked about, the networks is a big piece. But we talked a little bit about the hub and spoke of the internet. With the Internet of Things, with the development of 5G and autonomous vehicles, the connectivity requirements for all this stuff is tremendous. They're all very low latency, or they're latency sensitive applications. They can't be run. Software can't be run in Northern Virginia for a car you're driving in Spruce Grove. It doesn't work. So development of data centers at what we call the edge markets is going to be a major aspect of the growth in data centers. And so that macro picture will drive it to this market, and then it's up to somebody to figure out the micro and put together the right offering that's attractive.
I wonder who that will be.
Well, as long as we're not, too deep into our other
as long as it's not going too well in Northern Virginia, but
well, I just mean, like there's only so much capital, and there's only so much
for sure.
opportunity, so it's a matter of we'll make it happen if it's
so I think we're kind of at the end here of our hour. I guess I wanted to say thank you. A plug to you, a plug to both you and our mentorship program. Obviously, I reached out to you, and I've had really good experience with meeting people through NAIOP, just because of some of the programs that we offer. And if there's any developing leaders that are listening, we have a really amazing mentorship program where you get to have these kind of one-on-one conversations with industry leaders, such as Colin. If you have any interest, definitely reach out to Anand or myself, and we can kind of get you pointed in the right direction. But Colin, thank you so much. That was really interesting, and I appreciate your time now. I appreciate it in the past when you've met with me, and I guess I imagine you're kind of open to anyone reaching out to you if they have any questions.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you, Bronwyn. This is great. Thank you for reaching out and providing an idea. I mean, I don't consider myself a mentor because I don't want to admit that I'm getting older. I was
you
a
don't
DL.
have to be old to be a mentor.
For the record, I was a DL 5 years ago. So, but yeah, absolutely. I've benefited from having mentors. I still have mentors. I would love to be a mentor someday to help people. And so, I mean, absolutely. And it doesn't have to necessarily be mentor-mentee, but I like meeting new people. So absolutely, my contact information is out there. And anyone listening, don't hesitate.
Perfect. I think we're good then. Anand, did you have any other things to say before we finish off here? Oh, your microphone's still off.
There we go. I just wanted to say to you guys, I think it's interesting. These 20 questions events have been really popular, and people have been talking about them. And so, just thanks to you, Bronwyn, especially for kind of for conceiving of this 20 questions event and hosting it for us. So
awesome.
Really, thanks so much, and thanks, Colin, for doing it and teaching us a little bit about data centers. Is an interesting field that I think not a lot of people in our market really know about. So hopefully everybody took something away from it. As I said, our next event is private just for our sponsors, with the head of CMHC and the Ministry of Finance, talking about the federal rent assistance program. I want to thank our sponsors, Remington, Qualico, Quadrille, and Panatoni Development, and our President's Club sponsors, Bental Green Oak, One Properties, Pangham Development, Avis & Young, Ledcor, Melcor, as well as our developing leader sponsor. Take a Look will be launching our program really soon on mentorship with our partner Cameron Developments. So thanks again for doing it, guys, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Awesome.
Thanks,
guys.
Thanks, guys.